Hello and welcome to the Agile Speaker. In Season 4, we're turning the spotlight onto the speakers. I want to capture stories, experiences and helpful takeaways from clients I've worked with over the years, so you, our listeners, hear from the speakers themselves rather than advice from me. They come from a range of different sector, different size of business, different experience and background. But what connects them all is they've all taken to the stage, presented in the boardroom, pitched to investors, or have had to influence their audiences in some way. As you'll hear, I had such a great time catching up with all of them. I hope you enjoy listening to our conversations and that you find their advice and top tips helpful. Today, I'm delighted to have Claudia Cavalluzzo, Executive Director of Converge, with me. Converge helps students, graduates and staff across Scotland's universities and research institutes turn their creativity, ideas and innovations into commercial reality. So, if you're a student at university, a graduate or a member of staff, and you have an idea that you think can solve a problem, you can apply to Converge. And if accepted onto the programme, you enter a business training program to gain tools, support, and funding opportunities that can help springboard your business into the world. Claudia, thank you so much for joining me. It's lovely to see you. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Excellent. Okay, can you tell us a bit more about Converge, a little bit more about the people who come through the program itself and what it all entails?
Absolutely. Universities are a hotbed of inventions and talent, but turning an idea into a commercial reality is really tough, particularly without a map and a network that can guide those aspiring founders along the way. So Converge exists to support the most innovative thinkers on that journey. We work in close partnership with universities in Scotland, helping translate ideas into sustainable companies. Through a cohort-based approach and tailored entrepreneurial training, we also provide pre-seed funding and high-value connections. And we are regarded as an important launch platform for Scotland's university founders. So who do we see throughout our program is students, alumni, researchers, staff who have an idea or are really looking to commercialize their research and want to make that into a sustainable and impactful business. We have done this for many years now. We are in our 13th year, and I have personally felt particularly lucky to see all these people going through the program, other programs, and their own personal and professional journey to success.
Brilliant. I just think it's the most wonderful program and organization to be on offer if you're at that point of being at university, because, I remember being at university, I hate to think how long ago now, 25 plus years ago, and it just simply wasn't there. If any of the people that I'd known had some awesome, innovative idea, we wouldn't have known where to take it or where to start. I just don't feel like that opportunity at all was there. And yet now that Converge is there, and as you say, been around for 13 years, it's such an obvious platform, isn't it? It's just fantastic. And for students, graduates and staff to be able to think about an idea they've got and I know a program that I could apply to that's going to support me to the next stage. It's brilliant.
Absolutely. I was doing my PhD and I loved it, but I never for a second asked my question, what if? Because I think you just don't know what you don't know. And when many years later I discovered Converge and I applied for the job, I applied because I thought this is exactly what I wish I had known, what I wish had existed when I was doing my research, because I could have at least given it a go. So now universities are much more equipped to provide support. So we work in collaboration, enhancing what the initiatives that they are supporting. There is, funding opportunities, competitions inside universities, and we bring it all together by bringing a national cohort together. So we complement what's there. Sometimes we are what's there, and we keep evolving and changing. But it's really to give that opportunity to that person who wants to know what if.
Yeah, and to give them all of these connections, the education around setting up a business, the legals, the financials, how to spin out, all these sort of more the educational piece and the skills to be able to talk about it as well. And all of that builds up towards real confidence in your abilities to be able to take this idea out of the university, doesn't it? Again, I think thinking back, when I started out my business, there was literally so little 20 years ago, so little to be able to tap into. So it's just amazing to have this opportunity for so many people. So how many people have taken part? Do you know those numbers? And what sort of impact has Converge had on all of those cohorts over the years?
So if we take the last cohort aside, which is about to graduate next month, we have provided training to over 600 aspiring founders. Of these, approximately half have incorporated a business, and that is both startups and spin-outs. Latest figures suggest that they've raised approximately 325 businesses within 70%, so 70 survival rate, which is pretty healthy. And they have raised over £320 million in follow-on funding, with the majority of this being in equity investment. Now, these are figures that we have gathered over the years that focus on people who have gone through the program, but obviously don't include what goes on in all the Scottish universities, which is much more than this. But we do see a fair amount of businesses going through, and we have an impact at that individual level, economic, absolutely impact, which is why we exist, but individual level of giving people a chance. Sometimes they might not have that chance because the university doesn't have the resources, or as you said, they don't have the confidence. And that personal approach, and they're holding their hand on that journey and then connecting them with all the other opportunities that are now available, thankfully, it's what makes them successful. So we play a part in their success. We are a piece of this big puzzle that is entrepreneurship.
Yeah, it's absolutely awesome. There are the stats that you can measure, and then there's so much you simply can't measure, isn't there, as well? I've been involved with Converge for, I think, maybe 12 of the 13 years. So I've worked with you and the team over the years, supporting all of the individuals who come through the program to articulate their business story to the future audiences will be speaking to. Specifically, the pitch training workshops I run are to help those individuals, the cohorts, to create a 1-minute pitch. I've absolutely loved being involved over the years, and we did a bit of a count up a few months ago of the number of entrepreneurs that I've worked with over the years, and it's well into the thousands, and a huge number of them have come through Converge. So it's been a really fabulous journey for me to come on to working with you and the team. Now, as you know, I believe in the need to be agile when it comes to how we communicate. So being able to move from one situation to the next, being able to put across your message as well as your personality and credibility, whether the environment is formal, like the pitching event, up there in front of a huge audience, time pressure of 1 minute, or it might also be 1 to 10, 1 to 5, 1 to 1. It could be an internal communication as well. Every single one of these interactions presents an opportunity to you and your business, and we need to be able to move from one to the next. So with that definition in mind, how do you think Converge supports all of the founders, the entrepreneurs that you work with, to be agile?
Agility is absolutely intrinsic to the entrepreneurial skill set. You have to be agile in anything you do. You do a million jobs in a startup and you talk to many, many different people. So the ability to move from one to utilize different skills as you do that. And it's absolutely the same when you're communicating. So as you said, we have this elevator pitch or event where we train people to condense their message in 1 minute. And we do that. It's brutal. And we have seen people break under the pressure, but it's just to give them an example of how tough it can be, but also how good they can be. If they are able to convey an important, often complex message in just 1 minute, then all the other pieces of communication will be much easier than that, because then the more time you have, the more relaxed you are. The training that you have been providing, it really helps them with the skills and the toolkit that they can then call upon when they are talking in that 1 minute setting, but also in other settings. Communication comes in many different forms. It's the spoken word. Is it 1 minute? It is a long presentation. It is, as you said, you're maybe talking to your team members and you're trying to encourage them to embark on a new project, excite them about what's coming, taking them through really hard times. So you have to, in that setting, I would say, think about the passion and what motivates you and try to connect, which is probably true in every other setting as well. But it's not as structured as you might have to think about when you're perhaps presenting to investors or businesses. So agility is absolutely key in everything you do. And so it is in communication, and with your help and the help of our training providers, being agile in the way they present their business plans, their marketing plans, that maybe an informal conversation with an investor, which is not going to be a structured pitch, but yet you have to be thinking about what are the things that you want them to have in their head when they leave that coffee table. That's important. So we try to provide that training from very formal to informal to structure, not structure, but really think about key messages. I worked with Sandy Kennedy at Entrepreneurial Scotland, and before every important meeting, he would always call me, which always terrified me. And he said, what are your key messages? And often I have to say, I would just go and I just wanted to have a chat. But he was making a good point, which I try to think about every day. What the person in front of you is giving up their time, and you want to utilize their time wisely, and you want them to leave with 1 or 2 key messages in their head. So think about how you are going to make that happen. So have that in mind before you start. And you might not need a script, but just have what are the key takeaways for that person, and keep that in mind. Not quite like a politician, but almost like one.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's I think something that they gain through the program is that they are meeting lots of different people, aren't they? Through the training program itself, also through the events that you host and facilitate, and all the different introductions. So it is getting them to think about one event, you might be meeting a lot of investors. The next one, you could be sitting at a table with your future chairman or chairperson there around the table. It could be a mentor, it could be an advisor, it could be a future customer, but it's really trying to get them to think about who is it that you're talking to, who's the audience, and being agile in how they talk about those messages to those different people.
Yeah, I think the audience is the key.
Yeah.
To think about who's in the audience, whether it's a big group or someone sitting next to you, and when you then are developing your business in every piece of communication, thinking about that very aspect. So I think a good example would be someone I have recently been working a bit more closely with, which is Eve Hanks, the CEO of MyRNA, a deep tech startup or spin-out from SRUC, developing a technology that allows the prediction and the monitoring of diseases in both pets and cattle. So production animals. And they have a very complex technology, which is really exciting if you are an investor who wants to invest in deep tech. And perhaps using the word AI might excite some people. But if you are maybe talking to animal lovers, maybe the word AI is not quite fitting. So think about how else you could explain the same concept but in other words. They also are targeting vets, so that's not your usual customer, for it is not the normal consumer. So they use different words or pull out different levers when they're engaging with vets to really bring across what matters to vets. So they might talk about a diagnostic laboratory if they're talking to vets, but that's not maybe what the words they use to describe themselves if they're talking to investors or large companies who might be able to invest in the business. And I think Eve is an incredibly talented entrepreneur in everything she does, and in pitching and presenting, she's a master. And I use her pitch often to inspire other people and to show how it's possible to condense and a very difficult, complicated message in few words that excite people and really leave them with a smile on their face.
Absolutely. And I think something from that as well is about, well, certainly with the 1 minute pitches that we're helping them with, it's really getting them to think about, you're trying to make the conversation happen. You're trying to rouse the listener's curiosity. You're trying to get them to come and say, tell me more about that. And so it's also that kind of, what do you leave out? What do you keep in to get that curiosity going? I think the other thing about agility, actually, when I think about it with Converge is, as you just said earlier, when they do go up on stage, it puts them under an enormous amount of pressure. Many of them will never have done something like that before. Some of them may have, if it's staff, they may well be used to lecturing, but this is quite a different environment, isn't it? So I think there's also the need to be agile in how you handle different environments, different settings, and the pressure that you experience in those different environments, because some of them your adrenaline will be absolutely flying along, and others you'll feel a lot more relaxed. So it's also about understanding how you respond to that, I think, as well. That's also a great exercise. So as much as it can break people, but I don't think anyone's really broken from it yet. We've had a few moments where people have frozen on stage, but if anything, that just shows how hard it is, doesn't it, for everybody else? But I think it's also really made a lot of people, make or break. I think there's a lot of people where they've really shone, and that's been phenomenal to see, and it's a great experience for them to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. We have seen some people panic, and something I suffer from is imposter syndrome. So as we were asking these people to go on stage, and you do get one to almost refuse to do it, and you want to convince them, and you say, I know how hard it is. Actually, I didn't, because I'm not an entrepreneur, and I've never had to pitch in 1 minute my business. So you might remember one year I asked for your help to prepare me to actually go on stage and deliver my 1 minute pitch, which I was quite nervous about. Obviously, my business wasn't at stake, or hopefully it wasn't on that particular occasion, but I wanted to experience what it is like to have a clock, running in front of you and only a maximum of 130 words, and really leave people excited by what they're hearing and indeed wanting to find out more. That's what we tell them. Just excite them and make sure that they want to talk to you afterwards.
I actually find, although a lot of people find whittling down pitches very stressful and really hard work, I love it. I absolutely love it. I love helping people with it, because you can be so clever with what you say and don't say, and what you stimulate in people's thinking, and the questions that you stimulate. And often you stimulate what you want them. There's a wonderful skill. And once you understand that and have the mindset of what you can do, what you can achieve, then actually it's a lot less stressful, and it might even be enjoyable for some people. Okay, so thinking then about the impact that having this skill can have on, perhaps maybe thinking about this skill for you, because you have been on this journey yourself over the last few years of getting up and you host the event yourself, you offer, doing the introductions and being up on stage. but also the impact you think the skill has had on the companies. You meet them right from the start. You and the team see those first 1-minute pitch films that come through in the applications. You meet the cohort as they go through the program, and then you see them on stage at the event in front of the audience. What impact do you see on those companies going through that journey in the way that they're then delivering those pitches?
I think what we provide is that confidence by helping them with the skills and education, as we said earlier, the presentation skills. It gives them confidence in their abilities and their idea. And so throughout the program, you see them grow and change, and you could call it pivot, or maybe you're just evolving. And then at the end, or many years after, you see them confident in what they're going to say because they actually believe it. And I think that it is about that belief. It's difficult to think that a kernel of an idea could be a big, powerful, disruptive business, but in many cases it is. And so the more you believe it, the more confident you're going to be in delivering that pitch or presentation. And so that's what we try to build up their confidence, their skill set, their networks, to help them succeed, to give them all the tools to succeed. So it's not just taking a punt anymore. It's actually, it's, it might even work. And so some people can see it from the start. I think Dave Hughes is someone who's always had a vision. And I think that has been evident throughout, his pitches that have changed over time, but always confident because he always knew it was going to work. Maybe couldn't quite see in which sector at the start, given that his technology has applicabilities in many sectors, but he could see that this was going to be big, and it is getting bigger by the minute. Some others might need a bit of help, encouragement. There is fear of failure. And therefore that comes across if you're talking. You're scared of failing. You're scared of failing on stage, which might be a symptom of your business. Maybe if you can present on stage, then your business is not solid enough. So we try to demystify that and to give them the tools so they can take on that journey with a bit more confidence and belief in themselves.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, I feel so lucky to get to go on that journey with them all. It's a real privilege, isn't it, to be able to be there from the start. And with the work I do with them all in the pitch training, helping them all to see the wood from the trees in their pitches, helping them to be able to really articulate what it is they're trying to get across I find it really exciting. And you can see it from their point of view, sitting there as the pennies just suddenly all drop and clarity seems to appear to them. You can see relief and their shoulders dropping of thinking, okay, I got it now. I often say to clients that I've got a sharp scalpel that quickly dissects a pitch and then can put it all back together again. Others have described it more like a machete. But because so often the journey that they go on from trying to explain what they do, which is perhaps not clear enough for the audience they're trying to persuade. So they're not necessarily thinking about investors. They might be getting too technical. They might be going into way too much detail. You mentioned the 130 odd words that you could say in a 1-minute pitch. There have been so many who turn up and say, well, actually, I can say 190 in 1 minute.
I can say 250.
Yeah.
1 minute.
I'm quite sure you can, but no one's going to remember anything. And so, honing and crafting a pitch that really articulates their value proposition and gets straight to the heart of what the audience needs to hear is a really exciting thing to be able to do. I remember, for example, this year, I worked with the net zero category for Converge in the business training program. And Anna Renouf was part of my group from Firehorse. She's set up a waste management company who are looking to produce energy from horse manure. I think this is brilliant. Her initial pitch focused far more about things like the amount of horse manure that's lying around in the fields, and also, I suppose, the benefits that would drive you and I to want to try and find out how we can use her pellets, to help our home heating. It was a lot more driven by the customer, and it was compelling, but it didn't sort of show progress. It didn't show any traction or any real credibility around who out there believes in what she's doing. And so within that 3-hour workshop, we have a point where everybody is amending what they're doing before coming back to deliver it again. And actually, when I started digging around with her about what she's done, she had some great names to mention. I think Aberdeenshire City Council was in there, and it was like, there are organisations who believe in what she's doing and are wanting to trial with her or whatever it was that they wanted to invest time, money. And you see other people in the room sort of ears pricking up when she was mentioning these things. And we said, right, we've got to turn this bitch around. Turned out she'd made this great progress and had really great achievements. So she completely turned it around and restructured it, ran it again. Everyone in the room sat back and went, wow. And she ended up winning that evening in the pitch category for net zero. And it's just, it's brilliant to be able to see that sort of impact coming through to help people just be able to articulate what they're doing, isn't it? It's so critical.
Yeah, I think it's what we were saying earlier. You say what you want to say, but you need to think about what people want to hear.
Yeah.
And for you, the technology might be the most exciting thing. It's why you do this. But actually, for an investor, for a business partner, for your next chairperson, that's not the most exciting thing. It's the impact, or it's the scale, or there is something else that you need to pull it out of people. It's there. It just, I think fear sometimes prevails, and so you think, I've only got a few words, let me just say the most important things, and you just completely miss the point. And when you have such a short time, you can miss the point very quickly, and the next person is up.
Yeah. And it's the difference between having that conversation with the person you want to speak to at the end of the night compared to nobody coming to talk to you about what you're doing at all. Yeah, so yeah, it has a great impact. What about you personally? You're speaking at events regularly. You're involved in a lot of this yourself. How important do you think the skill is for you?
Well, if you ask my husband, he would say, very. I'm always talking. And you learn with the toddler, maybe fewer words are better sometimes. And so I'm trying to implement that in my professional life as well. Yes, I have to talk a lot. I'm not a confident, well, people say I'm a confident speaker, but I think they're misinterpreting, how I really feel. I'm not very confident, but I've had to learn. And so by practicing a lot, looking at others, I had a great role model before me, Olga, who was also, she was confident, but also nervous before speaking. So looking at how she maybe handled her nerves and looking at the preparation she would put into before an event, for example, when you're hosting a whole ceremony, it does take quite a lot out of you. I've done it now a few years, so I'm getting better at it, and I'm hopefully I'm getting better at it. I think I'm not super nervous. I'm just nervous, the right amount of nervous, probably. But I'm always, trying to convince people. It's a bit like selling. You're always selling, even if you don't like selling. If you don't think you're the salesperson, you are. If you are running a business, you're convincing people to join you on a project. You're trying to get funding. You are, for me, I might be engaging with the government and convince them that Converge is the best program ever being conceived. Maybe engaging with new partners and wanting their expertise and their funding. And so I'm always trying to convince someone of something so that they can provide the support that we need. And it's been interesting working with someone who's giving me feedback on how I come across, which is always quite frightening. And I think what seems to come across in my case is the energy and passion. And I think that's important. You could be saying lots and lots of things, but if you're not bringing that passion across, if it will become just a practice pitch, and people won't necessarily, but they'll think, yeah, you're a good speaker. That's about it. They will not believe what you're saying. That you need to believe in your business and your opportunity, and you have to convey that belief through what you're saying, and that's when other people can believe you as well. So I'm always trying to convince people, and I connect with what motivates me, and why I do this, and I try to make them see that why I do this. I think it's really important, and I bring them on that journey with me, and that's been working so far. But I'm always trying to improve, constantly refining the pitch, refining the words that we use, and it's not necessarily a rehearsed pitch, but it's some words get out of fashion, or some words have some baggage, and then you realize that actually, even using the word entrepreneur, we have done some research into it, and people don't see themselves as entrepreneurs. Yeah. If you're trying to convince someone to become an entrepreneur, maybe don't use the word entrepreneur, at least not in our field. Yeah. And we are trying to use, for example, the word founder much more, because it's something that resonates with many more people. And you can see yourself as a founder, but perhaps you might see yourself as an entrepreneur. It has negative connotations, where there are some people maybe they're not the best role models. So you're always listening, and you're always evaluating what you're saying. But the most important thing is that your beliefs come through what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. And that goes back to what I was saying about achieving message and credibility personality, because you can really, that's what the credibility personality piece to me is what carries more weight. That's the bit that builds trust, builds rapport, helps people to really believe in you and go with you on that journey, isn't it? They will be listening to what you say. They'll compare that to what they already know, but they're making subjective assessments about you as you're going through your talk or your pitch. And so if you can really dial into getting your passion, your personality across in a natural way, then that's the absolutely, best place to be if possible. And, we were talking earlier about speakers that we've seen, like Caroline Morel, who, has been a huge supporter of Converge for a long time. And when she gets up on stage, she's just so engaging and so passionate, and often self-deprecating and fun, and her personality shines through. And what I love watching her is what you see on stage is what you get before or afterwards when you're catching up. There's an absolute consistency to how she delivers when she's up on stage, when the pressure's more on. And that's almost like the sort of holy grail of what we're trying to achieve here, of audiences getting that consistent feeling for who you are, no matter what the environment is that you're experiencing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Caroline is just incredible. I have no more words to describe her. The way she comes across, what she says, how she says it, how, her body language, and it is natural to her. I'm sure it's come with practice. She must have something inside her that makes her just own that stage. But that's what we're all aspiring to be like. Absolutely.
But I think what's interesting is as well here is that two things that strike me. One is that when you're up on stage, when Olga used to do it, when Caroline does it, you'll make it look so easy. And that's what's quite intriguing as well, is thinking, I think that practice and the preparation, that is what helps it to come across like this is really quite a straightforward and easy thing to do. But and I think a lot of people often think, oh, but that person's really good up there because they're just a natural. Just how much work goes in the background to be able to do that. All the rehearsal, familiarizing yourself with the venue, the tech, the microphones, the lectern, whatever it is, all of that comes before and helps you to then be as relaxed as possible in a not very relaxing situation, perhaps. But it's also that it is such an ever-evolving thing, isn't it? You are constantly changing. And I think that that's also something to think about for all the founders, the entrepreneurs who come through the program, is you'll never completely nail it and never have to keep learning. I think we're always all learning, aren't we? And there's always going to be changes to make to the pitch. There's always going to be things you might need to tweak for yourself. That's a good thing.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I think the very first pitch is the unforgettable one. You probably will deliver so many others, hundreds of pitches. But you will remember that first time, and often it is through Converge. So I know many people, Eleanor Irvin, Dave Hughes, who remember exactly what they said on stage, which is frightening. And Dave recently actually gave his pitch based on his initial script, which was from 6 years ago, 7 years ago. And it was completely different. The confidence was there, but obviously the words and the way the business was at the stage that it was at 7 years ago is completely different from what it is now. And he was able in very, in 1 minute or, 1 minute each pitch and then a few words to describe the difference, the journey's been on. So it is absolutely ever evolving. And you perfect it. You shouldn't obsess on, the words, but you definitely perfect it and you grow as a person and as a founder. And that pitch, no matter how long it is, it needs to reflect that.
Final part of our chat then, I would love to know if you have 3 takeaways for our listeners to think about, 3 things, whether it, tips or tactics, tricks of the trade for you that make a big impact on how you handle presenting.
Yes, absolutely. I'm sure the first one will resonate with you and many others is practice, practice, practice. That practice that we were talking about is what provides the confidence that you need to get on stage and believe there's something inside you will kick in at that point because you've got the knowledge, you've got the practice behind you, you've got the experience, you've got the beliefs. So that will kick in and you'll be able to present yourself in the best possible way, which might not be exactly what you have scripted. So I always bring my notes. I'm really striving to not have notes anymore, but I still do. And it's just to have that comfort to know that I have practiced and there is a script there that I can follow if I absolutely get stuck. But I never really look at them. They're just there. And they just remind me that I know my stuff. So I shouldn't just lose that belief in me just because I'm about to walk on a stage. Having said that, I think it was last year, and I was trying to say something really meaningful about the government and the political context, and I was trying to remember the words that form the acronym NSET, and I had it written down, and Anna Stewart was there in front of me. And I just couldn't remember. And at that point, I just had to make a joke because I just couldn't remember. I couldn't even read it. So I did joke. And then in my next segment, I went back and I said, that's what it means, is the National Strategy for Economic Transformation. I'll never forget it. And you do practice, but you also, something might go wrong and just let's all have a laugh. Let's all remember that we're humans and that they will be remembered. So that's definitely, so practice, but also remember that it might not just go exactly like how you've scripted it. Connect with people, whether it's through humor or passion, embrace, what makes you unique. I also think about the fact that I'm not a native speaker, and you have trained many people who are not native speakers. And in fact, we see almost half of the people who go through Converge who are non-UK citizens, because maybe people who leave their home country, they do have the entrepreneurialism within themselves. And so it is something that we need to embrace and use to connect with people, not try to hide, but also remember that the accent might play a part as well. So do connect with people. And I always try to bring it in my presentation, the fact that I am Italian somehow, so it might explain why I sound a little different. And that connection is hugely important. I hope she won't mind me mentioning her. Erin Reid at the last, in 2022, the elevator pitch event that we held. Erin is the founder of Lou Innovations, which is a menstrual hygiene kit that she's developing and building a business around it and many products to follow. Erin is dyslexic. She had practiced a lot. And she had notes with her, and she went on the stage, and because of her dyslexia and the stress, she couldn't just read the words anymore. And probably 20 seconds in, the clock is running. She just couldn't. She froze. But then what she did, she threw the notes across the stage and just said 2 key messages. This is about menstruation. it is a huge impact of business I'm running and I am Erin. And she walks off. And you know what? People connected with that. They felt her, the stress and the nerves. And so many people went to talk to her after that because she had found a way through the stress to actually connect with people and the humor. And I think that people will remember that and will respect that.
Yeah.
So practice, connect, pace yourself. It is hugely important. The majority of people will speak faster when they're nervous. And that just isn't helpful because then people might not understand. If you have an accent, it's even worse. So do practice those awkward silences because they do the silence, but also the tone of your voice. I realized when I was doing some training that my sentence had a tone that would start in one way and end at a completely different tone. So you might be saying the most important part of your pitch at the end of your sentence, and then maybe you're just talking and it just doesn't come across as strong. So be mindful of your tone, of your pace, and how many words you can say. And I think, as we said throughout this talk today, be yourself.
Yeah.
Don't be someone you're not on stage, because eventually you'll come down from that stage and you'll talk to people and they will want to see what I've seen on stage. So that passion and ability to communicate. So don't think about presentation skills as your 1 minute pitch or 3 minute pitch. It's actually all the time when you're talking to people, it's how you engage with people. So be mindful of that.
Brilliant. That wraps it up absolutely perfectly. You've just essentially summed up everything that I try and talk to people about around all of this is, don't think about it as being that, oh, that's when I'm on stage next week, or that's when I've got that big pitch in a couple of weeks. It's every single day. Let's keep this as a skill that you're constantly working on, constantly evolved, but constantly working on and practicing it so that it is a day-to-day thing. And then it means that when you do have the higher pressure situations, those skills are already there to tap into and hopefully tap into quite easily. Okay, it's been super to speak to you this morning, Claudia. Thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it. Is there anything else that you want to add before we wrap up?
Not really. I think we've covered quite a lot. I hope that I have added value to yourself, your podcast, and your listeners. And it's been a joy to work with you over the years. Thank you for your support.
Oh, thank you so much, Claudia. It's always great fun being involved in Converge, and I always really enjoy working with you and all of your team in running the sessions and supporting all of the founders and entrepreneurs who take part. If anyone listening would like to find out more about Converge, go to the website www.convergechallenge.com. And finally, if you want to learn how to be a presenter and be agile across all of your critical communications, come over to our website at www.mariannejohnston.co.uk for information on our courses or to get in touch. If you've enjoyed listening to season 4 of The Agile Speaker, please rate and review the podcast. We love hearing your feedback. Many thanks.